All right. Good evening, Springs BOE. You're live and we're being recorded. You're streaming on YouTube.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It is 7:02. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Vicki, would you take attendance, please?
Sure. And attendance tonight is Barbara Dayton, Emma Field, Patrick Brabant, and Kate Saris. Absent is Eric Frederickson.
Thank you very much. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a couple of items on a regular agenda and then our budget hearing. So this is time for public commentary number one on any of our personnel or finance items. Does anybody calling in have a question?
We have no callers at this time.
Okay, thank you. Who's going to handle personnel and finance?
I will handle personnel.
Okay.
As you know, we're still recruiting substitute teachers. We may see a couple now if the college kids are back or soon to be back. So this is just an appointment of a non-certified substitute teacher.
Great. Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby appoints Nicholas Sheraton as a non-certified substitute teacher at a rate of $135 per diem. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Great.
you.
Now finance items.
Okay, we just have two items. The first is an approval of an intermunicipal agreement for transportation. This is a renewal of the current agreement that we have with East Hampton. This would be, sorry.
We made it.
I've actually been here for 5 minutes. It just takes me that long.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Alright.
You guys too.
This will be in effect July 1, 2024, and it's just the same agreement that we currently have with East Hampton for them to provide services for our transportation department for our buses. Also, we have an intermunicipal agreement for student lunches, which we just have a few right now at this point, and we're just renewing that. And at any time, that agreement can also be available to accommodate more students.
Okay. Vicki, you've noted that Eric Frederickson has now joined
Yes,
the, okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
So do I have a motion to move finance items A and B to consent agenda?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. And lastly, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the board minutes from the April 30th, 2024 regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And now we're going to convene a public hearing. Do I have to actually absent the other meeting first or just go into this?
Just go into that.
We're now going to convene a public hearing to discuss the proposed budget for the 2024-2025 school year. The time is now 7:05 p.m. and I declare this public hearing open. If there are no objections from my fellow board members, I would ask Nancy Carney to provide us with a presentation outlining possible expenditures.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dayton. As we've done in the past, all these presentations have been provided to the board and the community in the past. And tonight we're just reviewing where we are as a district going forward with our 24-25 school budget. As we've discussed in the past, the budget does contain appropriations for mandates that are coming down from the state. Those include being sure that we provide our staff and our students with some new curriculum as far as the science of reading is concerned. This is a mandate coming down from the state. We've already begun implementing this, and we're looking forward to continuing that during the school year next year. As we presented in some former presentations, we're excited about providing our staff with professional learning communities. And this is where we really get our staff to work collaboratively together. To look very closely at student data and to see exactly what we can do to get our kids from where they are to the next level that they need to be at. And it's really improving communications, and we're excited about implementing that as well. And then we just basically hoping to keep all the things that we currently have that make this district so special. And that includes all of our extracurricular clubs and our programs. Obviously, we have to fund our special ed programs, both here at school and with Eastern Suffolk BOCES. And we also have to pay tuition for all of our students at East Hampton High School in grades 9 through 12. So this budget includes mostly mandated contingencies going forward. And that's where we work very hard to just keep the budget at a level that to keep things the way that they are.
Nancy, you just said that things that keep our school special, but in reality, to me, it sort of keeps our school normal, because these are the things that most kids expect to have in a school. You expect to have, good
Absolutely.
instruction and some sports and some, artistic things going on. And this is all.
No, we haven't added. We haven't.
School districts
Yes,
have.
we haven't added things to our program. We basically are looking to maintain what we already have. We did have a couple of reductions, both with a teacher that's retiring that we're not replacing, and a custodial member that retired that we're not replacing as well. We're trying to, as I said, just maintain exactly what we have already. And as you can see, if we just allowed and stayed within our current property tax levy cap, it only allows for $725,730 increase. And it doesn't come close to covering our required obligations from the state, our mandated obligations. We've had a really sharp increase in our expenditures, and our revenues do not cover what those expenditures are. So we had to make the difficult decision. You made it as a board, and as an administration, we brought all these things to your attention, that the decision is to pierce the cap or to have to drastically reduce our programs and our staffing in the district. It would be, and of course, by piercing the cap, it does require 60% of the voters on May 21st to support the budget proposal. And here you can see the anticipated property tax level, and you're going to be asked on May 21st, the voters will be asked to approve this levy going forward. And you can see in 2023-24, our tax levy was $30,595,409. The allowable tax levy would have only been a 2.37% increase. You can see that's where we got that $750,000 number from. As going forward, just really rolling everything over existing as it is, that increases the budget by to $33,900,488,000, and that's a 10.8% increase in the tax levy. And this is what we've been discussing over all the last budget meetings. And as we know, this is asking a lot of our community, but this is asking our community to keep our program as we know it here at the spring school. And the next slide will just show you where the percentage changes are. And you can see in the administrative category, the BOE, facilities, property, insurances, and BOCES administrations, we have a little over 6% increase. A lot of that is due to our auditing, the costs that we have for our auditors coming into the district. As you know, expenditures, inflation is causing things to go up for all the services that we get from all of our outside vendors and all of our providers. General classroom administration is instruction. This is all contractual. And this is where these increases come from. Obviously, special ed, library, computer guidance, health and counseling. Another area, special education costs go up regularly. The requirements for the services that we provide for our students go up on a regular basis, as do the number of students that we have to provide services for. So we have to make sure that we have the revenue there to cover those expenditures that are mandated. And then you can see clubs and athletics has basically gone up very little. It's just from very little contractual increases. Transportation costs have gone up very little. An area that has a significant increase is retirement, health, and benefits. And you can see there that it's gone up over 8%. And as we all know, the cost of insurance and health benefits doesn't go down. Sadly, it just rises. And those are mandated expenditure that the district has to cover. So we also have some debt and interfund transfers, which is also a very little bit. It doesn't affect the budget much. And you can see on the next slide our revenue. And as we all know, one of the biggest challenges we have in Springs is that we don't have a large commercial base. So most of the revenue has to come from our taxpayers and our homeowners. And this is what we're faced with as a district. And we need to we need to just get our homeowners to give us direction and where they want us to go as a school district. We're presenting a budget, as I said, that is going to maintain our current programs. We're not adding anything. We're keeping things as they are. We think we have a wonderful school here, and we provide a really good education for our students. And we just encourage all our voters to get out there and vote. And as you can see, our tax levy, as we've discussed many times, is going to be a 10.8% levy in order to keep things just as they are. Our state aid has basically remained the same. And you see that reduction because last year, for some reason, the pre-K allowance was put in the state aid, and that was not supposed to be there, but it's basically remained the same. As the governor, you're aware, restored the foundation aid.
Right, which is why we're at 10.8, not the
Yes.
11 point.
That's exactly why we were able to
a month or
reduce
so ago,
to the 10.8. Our appropriated fund balance, the appropriated fund balance, as you're aware, is money that was not spent the prior year that we can use as revenue. You don't like to reduce that too much, but we did take some money out of that in order to keep the levy down once again. And then our interest has basically remained the same, and as has our tuition from ascending districts. We do have a student here from ascending district, and we do receive revenue for that student. So,
Can I one second?
what's that?
The pilot program.
That's payment in lieu of taxes.
Yes, it seems a reduction. They seem to be taking.
Yeah, pilots come from different areas that the town gives exemptions to for taxes. They call it pilots, payment in lieu of taxes. And, you know, some of those things come off the register. Often pilots are for 10 years, or they're for 15 years, or for however long they may be. The reduction has to do with what the town is, has put something back on the tax rolls. So I'm not sure exactly what they put back on, but I could find that out for you if you'd like. And here you can see that this is just, and you have to be very careful when you look at this. Obviously, everyone needs to contact the tax assessor if they want to know the exact impact for their home on what their increase would be. This is just an example of a yearly increase for the 10.8% based on your home value and your assessed value. And as I said, once again, we encourage people to call the town assessor if they want to know the exact impact on their own home. And this is, I said, this is a challenging time for our district, and it's been a challenging budget season for the board, for the administration, in trying to put together a budget that we would preserve our program and what we have and what we hold so dear here at Spring School, and with being mindful of what we're asking the community to support. So that's the end of the budget presentation, and I thank you all.
I'm gonna have to go back 4 slides.
Okay.
About the so I'm looking at special education, which is we normally had $725,000 to work with. Basically, we were going to keep it within the 2.3%, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right now, if I'm looking at special education, is almost 600,000 there, and that's mandated increase that we have to apply to, right?
Correct.
And then the other one was another thing, the health insurance.
Retirement health
And
benefits.
retirement health insurance, yes, that's another huge increase that is mandated, right?
Yes,
It's almost
those have
$1.1
increased.
million.
Those have increased significantly,
Yeah.
and it is something as administrators and people involved in as leaders, as boards of education in public education, that we really have to advocate for down the road, those costs, because they're not sustainable going forward. And we are going to need to look at different ways of providing those benefits as we are going forward.
Yeah, the other one is the general administration and instruction.
Yes, and that most of those administrative costs are due to attorney fees and auditing fees, fees that for our auditors. As far as administrators go at this point, as far as administration goes, we have not increased the Board of Education budget. The superintendent's actually gone down a bit because I don't require health insurance and those kind of things. The area that's really gone up is in our auditing costs, which is significant. And once again, I explained before that inflation, things have gone up. What we have to pay attorneys, what we have to pay auditors goes up every year. And those costs are, the things that we have to do as a school district. We will try, we're going to work, one of our goals is to work really, really hard as a district to get our finances to a place where we're really being efficient and not making a phone call to an attorney if you don't have to, simply because you don't realize that a 10-minute phone call costs money. So just really looking at every single dime that we can save as a school district. We've done a very good job actually now with Ms. Winter and myself have really worked to stop spending now with the hope that we're going to end the school year with a little bit of money that we can put to our appropriated fund balance. And look, as you know, we're in a district in fiscal distress because our unappropriated fund balance is so low, which is our savings account in case expenditures come up that we have to pay for that we don't have money for. So we're looking to make sure that we have stability as a district going forward. And our real hope is that what's occurred, expenditures have increased so significantly over the years, and our revenues have not increased as much as our expenditures have. And our revenues and really just don't fit our budget, what it is for maintaining exactly what we have. So we're hopeful that if this budget passes, we're going to get in a place where we really have stability and balance, and then we can go forward in a place where we don't ever hopefully have to pierce the cap again, and where we can be in a place, yes, knock on wood, where we can be more like this instead of having spikes. So that's our hope going forward, and that's where we are, and that's what we've presented to the community at this point.
Thank you, Nancy. No, I think that's certainly all of our hope. Also, we know how hard you guys have worked to consider all options going into this budget and the long-term financial health of the district getting on a better footing than it is right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have the tax cap is the only thing that's actually a fixed entity, right?
Yeah.
So with such an exceptional inflationary time, there's no other laws capping the rates of expenditures for all that we've already mentioned. So you have this 2% plus some of the other things that you have to work with, but that does not keep pace with what we've seen. And as responsible as we have been, it's just those things are out of our control. The other thing I wanted to mention is that some of our closest neighbors are not so far off from us, and they have much more robust business districts than we do. So, I think that speaks to our fiscal responsibility here, that if you factor those things in, our neighbors and us, we're all in that kind of boat. It's a bit of a litmus test for what we're all going.
Yeah, we're all dealing as rural, smaller school districts. We're dealing with some of the same issues, and I think Montauk really pierced the cap at a very high level last year. Amagansett, East Hampton, Springs, we're facing that this year, and it has a lot to do with the fact that we're small districts and we don't have the same amount of revenue that other districts have coming in. And Springs is in a very different place even than East Hampton and Amagansett, where they both have a large commercial base. So we're in a unique place as a district, and we've been very fortunate as a community, as a school, that our community, our students, our parents, everyone has supported us as a school district going forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board at this time?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this time, are there any questions from members of the public, either here, we have two people now, or on LTV? If anyone calling in?
We have no callers at this time.
Good evening. I'm David Wood. I reside in the Springs. I'm going to just pass out something. I'll probably make reference to it later, but just a little table I was putting together earlier today. What I was working on, and I ran out of time to finish plugging in all the numbers, but this is actually a table of the years that I've lived here since 2001, the total budget for the school district, and the school tax rate as it's varied over those 23 years. As I said, I didn't want to miss the meeting altogether, so I did get around to completing it. But you can see how dramatically and rapidly and at an increasingly accelerating rate the tax rate has increased. Now, you may wonder, where did I get that tax rate for next year? I'll explain that in a moment. Let me just go back to my remarks here. The purpose of a budget hearing has always simply eluded me, since as of this point in time, you have already adopted the budget that will be presented to the school district voters, seeking a 60% approval rating in order to pass. Nothing we say or do here today could change the budget. You've already written that, you've approved it, you've already issued the budget report card, and that's all in the works. So this is kind of really just an opportunity to bury your breast and make remarks, but really can't have any impact. But here I'm here anyway. The $37.8 million proposed budget is a 6.8% increase in spending. You know that. The $33.9 million proposed tax levy calls for a 10.8% increase in tax levy required revenue from the taxpayers of the Springs District. Meanwhile, while your expenditures have gone up dramatically over the many years that I've lived here, the K-8 population, the on-campus population of students, has dropped 7.7% from a high of 707 in 2016, 2017 to the current level of 671. Now, the town's 2014 tentative assessment roll was published on May the 1st. And that shows that the Springs School District property owners have a taxable assessed value. That's the assessed value, not true value of $25,171,480. And that enables me to take the amount of taxable assessed value in the district and the amount of tax revenue that you're requesting in order to comply with your budget request, and calculate an expected actual school tax rate. And that's what I've done. I've come up with the expected school tax rate of $1,346.78 per $1,000 of assessed value. And that may vary a little bit. In fact, it might even go up, because between now and the December tax bills and tax collections, the only thing that can change with those assessments is that they can go down as a result of tax grievances. They can't go up the assessed value, because that was our annual tax status date was March the 1st. So that can't go up if you only go down. So what I'm saying is that the tax rate for the school is going to increase at least by 10.8%, perhaps even higher. Now, there are a few things I've asked about in the past that I didn't get answers to, and there are a few other questions I have or comments I'd like to make. I don't really expect you to answer them, but I'm going to pose them anyway. I was heartened to see that for your April 30th meeting, you did publish a appropriations status detail report. And what I know was that shows the entire year's budgeted amount, the amount that you've expended through that date, the encumbered amount, which is substantial, which I assume means that you've encumbered all the funds for all the expenditures that you expect to make between now and the end of the school year. But that leaves on your records available $4.4 million. Now, you may have forgotten to encumber some things, but my question to you is, of the current year's budgeted budget and revenues that you've received from the school taxes, how much do you expect at the end of the year to have not spent, and therefore be able to put back into next year's budget, or to use to reduce the amount that's required to raise by way of tax revenue? So that's a question. I'd like an explanation of what the $4.4 million of available funds as of the end of April on your appropriation status detail report means for the fiscal condition of the district. The next question I have, and I think I asked the same question last year and I got an answer, but I don't remember it. One of the items that stuck out in the proposed change in the budget was the line for Social Security. I can't imagine why, unless there's some change in classification of payments, why you would anticipate a 20.63% increase in your Social Security expenditure for next year. So if someone has an answer to that, I'd appreciate it. I realize that our shared business manager probably has other things to do tonight. Maybe he's with East Hampton tonight. So he's not here to answer that, but I am curious about what that is.
I can respond a little bit if you'd like.
Sure.
And as I said, you're exactly correct in the fact that the shared business official has his hearing this evening, his budget hearing in East Hampton, so he's not able to be with us. The one thing I can say, and as I did mention before, is when we started, we knew that we were in fiscal distress very early. You know, when I kind of got here in February, and we put a halt on all spending from now, you know, from early on until the end of the school year. And obviously we do have things that come up on a regular basis. It happens every day where you have to approve things that you weren't expecting to have expenditures on. And they can be things from the physical building that all of a sudden you have to dress and do things. They can be curricular expenditures. They can be staff expenditures on different things that you didn't encumber, and they come up all the time. And but we've been very, very frugal in trying to be sure that we are not spending money so that we can address the fact that we're in fiscal distress, and that we want to make sure that we're able to our fund balance is going to next year so that we can be in a better position. And that's the best way I can respond to that at this point. Mr. Schneider obviously would be able to give you a little bit more detailed information on that.
Well, the unexpended funds from this year's budget year,
Yes.
you then have a choice of two things. You can either use it to reduce the amount of the tax levy, or you can put it or sock it away for a rainy day by increasing your reserves, your unallocated, unencumbered reserves. So the question is, you know, how are you going to react if in fact you have somewhere several $million of unexpended funds from this year? I don't know what it will turn out to be, but I do know that in prior years, under prior business administrators, there was an estimate provided of what you expected at the year end to be available from this year's monies that were not expected to be expended. I haven't seen that presented as part of the process, and I appreciate that your new business manager has jumped in and found all sorts of different systems from prior people, and it's probably been very difficult for him to accumulate all the information and to present it in a coherent fashion. But yet you're going to have to deal with that question, because there will be, and there always is, a substantial amount of money that you budget for, that you collect from the taxpayers, that you don't spend. And the question is, what are you going to do with it? And it was also mentioned by Mr. Schneider at the last meeting, you will be making certain additional decisions between now and September as far as what to do with those monies and how to balance this year's books. And I'm just saying that there might be a source of funds that hasn't been discussed yet, and that's the leftover funds from this year's budget.
I think those are good points. One of the things I know that we talked about was just how dangerously low our unappropriated fund balance was, and
It's
how
at 0.25%, and it should be at 4%.
So to your point, you know, whether it's replenishing that so we're no longer classified as fiscal distress, that we could support a student with higher needs that doesn't put pressure on the other students in the school. When you're so low on that line item, anything that comes into the school can greatly affect the school at large, and we need to serve everybody. But certainly, to your point, if there is, you know, an excess, right, which would be amazing.
Well, there always is.
You know,
there is annually.
But to that, like, what are you replenishing to support that versus once you get to a sustainable level, what might you be able to give back to a taxpayer versus what new needs might arise? And of course, when that time comes.
But
we're
Mr.
gonna
Schneider
make
was
that
speaking
assessment.
to, at that last meeting, particularly was the foundation aid. That if the foundation aid was restored, which it was, and we counted on that, and which is how we were able to reduce the levy, that you had up till September to be sure that, until you set your tax levy. Mr. Frederickson is exactly right in that right now, your appropriated fund balance is what you want to have in a good place so that next year when we get to our budget process, we're able to use that money to make sure we can stay under the levy next year. I mean, under the tax cap next year, which is where we would really like to be. And then the unappropriated fund balance is really our savings account. And just like we all do in our homes, you want to have a savings account for things that come up that that can come up whether you're a school district or whether you're a homeowner, and you want to be sure that that's at a level that can weather whatever you might be confronted with.
However, you don't want to double dip. And why do I say that? You can't build into your numbers for next year's out of district tuition all the contingencies and then complain that you don't have enough money in your contingency fund. Now, I asked the question of Mr. Schneider and the superintendent to provide me with detailed information as to how the current proposed budget process determined there's a need for an increase of 8.68% or almost $1 million for tuition to other districts, whereby the adopted budget of last year would be increased about $700,000. And I asked this question because if you look at the numbers of how many high school students you expect, there's a dramatic decrease because of the change in the annual class size. And you're going to be sending less students, you're expecting less students, and yet you substantially increased in your budget the amount of tuition that and I asked the superintendent, and she was kind enough to respond, but I thought her response was merely global and non-specific. I asked for data, and what I got was the following. As was stated at the board meeting, the recommended appropriation, this is specifically for out-of-district tuition, was arrived at by examining the information on enrollment we now know, coupled with fluctuations in enrollment based on past trends. Tuition payments are one of the many items that the district simply must make. The district is therefore well served by having flexibility in the budget to accommodate late enrollments of students who will require tuition to be paid. Historical data shows that students have enrolled in the district in the summer, leaving the district with budgetary shortfalls in the tuition needs. By appropriating at the level we are recommending, we will be able to withstand spikes in enrollment in summer 2024. Point is, you're building into your tuition budget a tremendous amount of excess flexibility. And yet, the several $1 million that are probably going to be left over unspent this year, instead of putting that back into reducing your taxpayer tax levy requirement, you're talking about using it to bolster next year's reserves.
Well, Mr.
You
Booty,
can't have it
you're
both.
saying probably, and as you well know, our new business official, who is here on a part-time basis so far this year, is not here this evening. And he really begins diving into things, wholeheartedly at the start of the new year. So it's going to take a little while for our new administrative team to really look into all this. So a lot of these answers you're not going to get tonight, and you're not going to get for, a few months. And that, unfortunately, that's just the way things played out for us this year. You know that we've had some turnover with business officials. We've had some very new business officials, and now we have this very experienced person coming in. We're really excited about how he's going to be really, parsing everything in the budget, and we're looking forward to the results that he has for us. But right now, this, what we're asking is then the recommendation to really get us back on our best financial footing and to account for all of our expenses, which I'm sure you can understand that, as you pointed out, that there's not a change that can be made right now.
But to the point you were making about, I think, I don't know if we call it a tuition buffer, but if we can use this year's example, because of what we did last year, for that anticipated buffer, because you're never really quite sure exactly what enrollment's going to be. Do we know how close we were to that buffer that
We were right there. And last year, our gen ed population was over what we anticipated, but our special ed was under, and since that tuition is higher, we were saved.
Right.
So
If
we
it
were
wasn't-
nearly a net zero in terms of that. So to your point, if we had not done that, we would have had to pull from existing programs for that number. And of course, I don't know the specific numbers, but just to that one point you're making, without our business official here, I wish we could answer more specifically your questions, but that hedge, if you will, on the board's part, saved our school for this year.
Also, to your point about having a tremendous amount of money left over at the end of the year, I don't think that the district would be in a situation where we're classified as being in financial distress if that were the case in past years, if we had all of this money sitting around at the end of the year. I'm not sure that.
Well, the year's not over. No one will know what you have left over until the end of the year.
Right, but I'm talking about past years too. We've run our unappropriated fund balance down to an amount that's put us in a situation where we're classified as being in financial distress. So we haven't had millions of dollars sitting around at the end of the year. That's just, I don't think, an accurate statement.
By not piercing the cap, we've been tapping into the unappropriated fund balance.
You've been able to use some of that money.
We have.
But it's
to
on,
the
it's
school's
on such a
detriment.
decline now that the savings account and the rainy day funds that you mentioned that we have tried to shield the community from for X number of years to not pierce the cap, that clearly there's been a need to continually dip into that fund balance that allows you to spend more freely. And that has been nosediving to the point where we can no longer sustain our programming without doing that. And now we need to look at the numbers. We need the support from the community to sustain that. And then, of course, with our highly experienced business manager to be able to look at every line item, even change line items names, clean up, make it more simple for everyone to understand, be able to answer your questions more specifically and get those answers that we need. But clearly, that need has been great and it's no longer sustainable.
I'm gonna try to wrap up very quickly.
Well, David, just, I understand what you're saying about on April 30th, anticipated, what was left over. When you get the anticipated spending for the end of the year, I know we've always done that in the past. We did not know that, But if we look at salaries, probably at $1 million, probably, right? Pretty close to it in 2 months. And then you have high school tuition that you have to pay to us. We pay monthly on that. So, but it would have been nice to see, what was left over after that.
Well, that's why the titles are budget amount adjustments, adjusted
Right.
budget expense encumbered, $8 million or almost $8.5 million encumbered already,
Right,
leaving, if that were all that needs to be spent, $4.4 million.
right. Yeah, and there's.
You've obviously encumbered what you would have to spend. So I don't know how much will be left over, but I think historically it's always $1 or $2 million that seems to be that you over budget for it, and then it gets pushed into the next year. So let me just wrap up by saying there are a lot of things that you can't control, and no one wants cuts. Although other districts this year have bitten the bullet and have proposed cuts in some staffing. One of the things that I encourage you, and I've done this in the past, I encourage you to look at very, very closely is your tremendous liability for future medical expenses for retirees. That's money that if you look at your financial statement, it's mind-boggling what that amount is, like $40 million for all the retirees' future other benefits for medical expenses. As far as I'm concerned, when someone retires, they no longer have a contract with you. They have certain rights and entitlements, pension, constitutionally guaranteed, but they don't have an entitlement to future medical expenses. I don't know anyone in the private sector that retires and has their medical expenses paid for, unless it's some kind of super executive that gets a golden parachute. And that's something that you can control. That's something that you need to rein in. And that's something that you need to have a hard conversation with. Whether it's a matter that has to be negotiated, part of the contract, I don't know, but it sticks in my craw when I see the amount of money that the town and the school district pays for health insurance for retirees. And they've retired. They have pensions, they have social security. Why are you paying their supplemental Medicare benefits? Don't know. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
LTV, oh, we've got, hold on.
Sorry.
Come on up.
Hi, Christy Lamada. Just one of the things, and I appreciate the research that you do, Mr. Bruda, and looking at the numbers and all of that. But one of the things I wanted to speak to was saying like, okay, well, your population hasn't changed that much and your expenditures have gone up over and over. I don't think that anybody understands what unfunded mandates really do to a school. And so saying, you know, it's not just, oh, well, you have this many kids, so it should cost this much money. We are increasingly asked to do more and more and more every bit of every year, which does necessitate more employees, which does necessitate more expenses. And that's not unique to our school. That's the way it is in education. And the other point that, you know, and this was said before when we talked about the numbers of students, just because you look at who's in 12th grade now and who's in 8th grade now, and you think that the old way was, oh, well, those 12th graders are leaving and the 8th graders are, that's not the way anymore. The 12th graders are not necessarily leaving. And another, you know, another situation we have is with special education and having to educate those children for one more year. So all of those things really do play into some of these, you know, additional expenses that we have. So I just wanted to clarify some of the list of points.
Thank you very much, Christy. LTV at this time, do you have anybody calling in?
We have no callers.
Okay. Seeing as no one else wishes to speak, I hereby declare the public hearing to be closed at, what time is it?
7:42.
7:42 p.m. Okay, and now it's time for public commentary number 2 for the regular board meeting. Anybody? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting to go into executive session to discuss contract negotiations and personnel? Second? All in favor? Aye.